This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Hey, Radio.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry I'm late. Again. That ice storm was truly of epic proportions.
Yeah, that looked terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was in Texas during the ice apocalypse. Yeah. That was a few years ago. But
Oh yeah,
I
that
remember
one.
that. Yep.
That was a big one.
yeah, it was terrible. We lost power for 4 days, and people were like chipping ice out of the swimming pool to like flush the toilet with the water. You know.
How long were you without power, Radio?
6 days to the hour.
That's
Literally
awful.
came
Yeah.
back on the hour, and that was the longest power outage we've had here by like 200%. Like when I lived in this area before on a different branch, we went out without power for a couple weeks sometimes, but like that was a different branch. I'm at like a junction of two roads. It's like a major thing, and it took them 6 days to get that intersection back up. It is wild, truly. Like the whole region, like the state of Oregon declared a state of disaster over how bad it got. Just so widespread. Yeah, it was a good excuse to stand you guys up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm glad you're thought out.
That's all right. I was sick as a dog anyway, so it was a twofer really. Because I was like, I'm considering canceling, and then Radio's like, I don't have power, and I was like, sweet. I'm still a little clogged up, by the way, Radio. So sorry about the quality. I might be a little nasally.
Well, given that we do have a hard stop, do you want to
let's
get
jump
us
live.
Discording?
And guess what, everybody? Today we do have video. There we go. Hey, and you'll see that we do also have a guest, Abby Goldsmith, with us today.
Hello.
Okay, let's get recording turned on before we preamble at all. But yeah, so hi everyone. Welcome back to Wheel of Time Spoilers. We're here to do Knife of Dreams Prologue Part 2 with a guest who has been trying to get on the podcast forever and whom has been stymied by an infinity of things, mostly stemming from me. But finally, at long last, we have Abby Goldsmith with us today, who requested to come on to promote a book, if I'm recalling our emails correctly.
Yeah. Look, I'm a real-time fan, major real-time fan as well.
Well, of course, that's
Yes,
of course,
obviously.
But yeah.
Well, so tell us about your, we'll get it to the Wheel of Time and how you got into it, but tell us about the book.
So it's Majority by Abby Goldsmith. It is epic sci-fi with superpowers. So, large cast of characters. Wheel of Time is one of my biggest influences. And I've been working on this series for a very long time. And I started serializing it online, built an audience, got an offer from Podium. And so I've got audiobooks narrated by George Newbern. And the whole series is coming out over this next couple of years.
Wow.
Nice. So the first book is out now?
The first and second books are out now. Yeah.
First and second book. Okay.
Awesome.
And what's the second book called?
That one is Colossus Rising. Yes. Yeah. So they are coming out a little quickly, but that's the way it is. So,
Well, I'm impressed. So you sat down and you wrote all three before the first one got published?
all six.
All six. Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
yes.
My mind goes to trilogy, right? Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Robert Jordan was an inspiration.
Yes. Yeah. I'm wordy. I can't.
So what was that process like? And how much work did you do on them with the publisher after you went to that point? Like, did they do a lot of editing?
I mean,
no.
honestly not, because the thing is, it's sort of like if you serialize online, especially on certain sites, you build an audience. At that point, if a publisher is seeking you, they generally already know they want it, and that it's got an audience and all that. So they had a pretty light touch with editing. I mean, they definitely, did copy edits and all that. But yeah, not changing the story, which is great because, yeah. So I will do the little warning. It's a dark science fiction. So I'd say the first two books, the main characters don't do too well. The bad guys are very overpowered. But look. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it has to be epic, right? I mean, epic
Yes, exactly.
involves stakes.
Exactly, yeah. So I feel like Wheel of Time readers will kind of get that and aren't going to be deterred too much by
Oh, and what's our favorite parts of the book? Egwene and the Seanchan, Rand in the
Right,
box, right?
exactly.
Like, well, we really love watching our main characters suffer.
Exactly.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that is the good stuff.
Yeah, that's what I grew up
totally.
on. So I mean, come on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am excited to check it out, and I will definitely have all of the links in the show notes for all of our audience to check out. Definitely encourage you all to go find another Wheel of Time fan writing cool stuff that has nothing to do with Wheel of Time, but still, comes from that same wellspring of shared enjoyment.
Oh, if I could write Wheel of Time fanfic, I would. Believe me. I mean, I don't think it's legally allowed. That's why I'm saying that.
I mean,
Sure,
nothing's stopping
yeah.
you from writing it. I don't know about publishing it,
Yeah.
though. I think that's the real problem.
Yeah. No,
Write it all you want, but...
I wanted to be Brandon Sanderson. I really wanted to write that ending. I
Yeah.
think everyone did, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. I know I'm a terrible writer. Like, I'm glad somebody who's competent took it on, but do I have notes? Yes, I have
Right.
notes.
Right. Yeah.
I've never dabbled, but I feel like someday a circuit's going to close in my brain and I'm going to have like 2/3 of a book already mapped out without even realizing it. Like, I feel like someday that's just going to happen. And I'm going to be like, where did that come from? But like, I can feel it. I just can't access it. But I've never dabbled in the slightest at all either. So
You're smart not to.
Yeah.
yeah, I just went into podcasting, which is a much better, more practical
It is.
field. Well, I don't know. I mean, like the shared internet propelled success of both of our things, right? You did your serial thing online, and podcasts are inherently just an internet phenomena. So,
You also talked that you did have a podcast as well. I think you
Yeah.
mentioned that. I don't know if you want to shout it out here.
Yeah, Stories for Nerds. So it's me and 2 other guys. It's mostly kind of nerdy chit chat about like games, TV, film, and stories. So yeah, that's been going on for about 7 years, and it's going to be ending kind of soon. So,
oh, wow.
yeah.
Both a long-lasting podcast and a podcast that is planning its own end. 2 very unusual things.
Yep.
What, you mean you just don't go till you run out of steam, peter out, and just crash with like longer and longer gaps between the episodes until you just stop publishing altogether, leaving your fans wondering whether or not you care about them or this podcast anymore?
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
Well, that's very cool. And even if it is ending soon, I'll also include notes for that in the show notes so people can follow that.
Definitely.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so tell us about your Wheel of Time journey and why you found us.
Okay, well, so I'd say I started reading it back in college. I was kind of like a little bit of a horror snob. Like, I was reading a ton of Stephen King and Rice, and I was like, fantasy, that's for babies. No.
My sister said the same thing to me the other day, which was really offensive. It's like, you still into those child's books? And I was like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like, that's the thing. Yeah, like I don't know how I got that attitude. I think I might have picked it up from my parents or something. I have no idea.
It's prevalent.
Prevalent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So anyway, I think like a whole bunch of different students. I went to Cal Arts for animation, which is a pretty dorky field to go into. And a lot of the students there kept recommending Wheel of Time to me, and I was like, all right, it looks like these covers look sexist. I don't know. So yeah,
Fair.
yeah. So I just started reading and I got addicted. Around book 2 is when I got addicted. Then I was like, all right, and I started like talking about like contributing to a fan film with Dragonmount, and then like around 2005-ish, I think the guy that runs Dragonmount was going to go have dinner with Robert Jordan and a bunch of fans, and at the last minute his wife had a baby, and he's like, can you go in my stead? And I was like, of course, so I got to meet Robert Jordan.
And people will know that as longtime guest and fan of the show, Jason Denzel.
I was like, wait, that's Jason, right?
Yeah, I guess I don't know how familiar everyone here is, but yes.
I mean, he's been on the show multiple times, and honestly, he retweeted our first tweet for our first episode, and was really like the #1 promoter and got us out there in the beginning. Like, he is probably, I wouldn't say our #1 fan, but certainly our first promoter. So, yeah, if you're not familiar with him and you listen to the show, get your shit together.
That is awesome, yeah.
So you got to be Jason Denzel's sub at this
Yes.
dinner. Substitute guest.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was great. Yeah, and I just remember, like, I was just sitting there with Robert Jordan and his wife, and they had all these kind of funny little quips, you know? Like, I think I asked Robert Jordan, you know, do you base all your characters on your wife? You said you base all the female characters on your wife. And he's like, yep. And I'm like, even Grendel? And he's like, yeah, that's right. And and his wife goes, that's when I tell him to take out the trash. You know, and I was like, oh
my God, that's so cute.
Yeah, really cute.
Okay, not the aspect of Grendel I was thinking about, but okay.
Right.
She's like referring to the compulsion. I'm like, not what I'm thinking about. Not what I'm thinking about.
You know, these comments are all Rorschach tests for how we relate to the series.
Oh yeah, and I was also going to mention, I met my husband. We both had Wheel of Time in our dating profiles, and that's kind of what we kind of bonded over when we first met.
Aw, that's super cool.
Always sweet. I love Wheel of Time couples. Shout out to Neil and Amanda.
Yeah, there's been so many at this point. I've been in this fandom for like a lot of years, but also it's a lot of couples that I've seen form. Like the Queen Squee herself is now engaged to a fan, and that's like I've been watching it happen over Discord. I'm just like, another one. There goes another one. It's great.
Oh, I missed that. That's
Jessica and random Noman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sweet.
Yeah. They're in one of the bazillion servers I'm in. They've been, announcing various, hey, this milestone has been passed. This has passed. Here's a picture of wedding supplies arriving. And it's just, I mean, she's the queen of squee. So it's just squee all the
Everyone's
way down.
squeeing all,
yes,
of course.
Much squee.
See, I took the opposite route. I found somebody and then forced Wheel of Time onto them.
That's also valid. Yeah.
That works too.
Yeah.
That totally works too. So, Abby, the last question before we get into this prologue is, how did you find us? What spoilers?
I guess you've just been on the radar for a while. I mean, I even had a Wheel Time fan site. Like, I was running a fan site. I was pretty active in Wattmania and Theoryland. I don't know, you got on my radar somehow over the years.
By osmosis.
Yeah, I think so.
That's fair.
The community is small enough that does happen for sure. Because there's a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels and websites out there. I'd be like, well, how did you first find it? And I was like, I don't know. A link on one of the other many YouTube podcast channels that led me to it. Yeah.
Cross-pollination. Yeah. Rising tide lifts all boats. This is why we're such a supportive community, is because osmosis benefits everyone.
Well, I think also you guys have staying power. You're still around, whereas some of those sites have really kind of died out or gone under.
Yeah, we do have staying power. I'm already like, well, we can't stop at the end. Obviously, we're gonna have to do it again. Like, clearly, my brain's already going.
There are no endings.
Staying power is we got that.
Well, I mean, at the very least, we have to do. Me and Aradia have to do all the episodes that me and Patrick did. So there's a whole record of Aradia's opinions on every episode. So. And then that's at least 5 years out. So, yeah, especially if we do them at the rate that me and Aradia go, which is, in the beginning we were doing like 4 chapters a week. Now we do like 1, so a little more in depth. Yeah.
Or just a couple POVs, like today. We're gonna see how many of these 3 POVs we get.
Oh yeah,
through.
we planned for 3 POVs, but these are not short. These are not short.
Yeah, so we'll get as far as we get, and it's gonna be fun. So, without further ado, shall we swing into Suroth's perspective?
Please. Do you want to read us in that first paragraph?
Yeah, unless Abby, would you like to read it?
I actually did not bring the book down here.
Okay, well then I will read it. The High Lady Suroth Sabel Meldarath lay awake on her bed, staring up at the ceiling. The moon was down, and the triple-arched windows that overlooked a palace garden were dark, but her eyes had adjusted so that she could make out at least the outlines of the ornate painted plasterwork. Dawn was no more than an hour or 2 off, yet she had not slept. She had lain awake most nights since Tuon vanished, sleeping only when exhaustion closed her eyes however hard she tried to keep them open. Sleep brought nightmares she wished she could forget. Ebudar was never truly cold, but the night held a little coolness, enough to help keep her awake, lying beneath only a thin silk sheet. The question that tainted her dreams was simple and stark. Was Tuon alive or dead? And then there's a paragraph of recap. Just straight up recap. But yeah, Suroth, having a bad time.
And this is a pretty heavy recap chapter for sure, but I like it from Suroth's POV because it gives us a lot of information about what she's thinking. More so than the events themselves, but how she perceives them.
Yeah, that POV writing that RJ does. It's like, ooh, this is different. And we get like it's actually paragraphs of recap, giving us a timeline, reminding us of the players. And I think that the timeline is also a really interesting part of that because like she's recapping events that took us most of a book to get through. Like she's not just recapping the end of the book. She's recapping like multiple threads from the last book.
Especially because we get the statement, was it 13 days or 12 days since the cleansing, basically? Right? So
12
days, yeah. So, I mean, that was the end of a book ago, right? So we're getting a recap of everything from the cleansing all the way through Crossroads up to the current moment.
Right. And like the fact that Tuon's entourage, like the Tuon's rescue party left, right? That was like a little throwaway at the end of the last book. And here we're having it all spelled out again, except that she's not sure why, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's just recap. Suroth does not want to die.
But I think it's good to get like Suroth's point of view, because it's good to get her reaction. So, and also, yeah, let's just see what's going on with the Seanchan at this point.
Yeah, she's a fun character. I like how out of control her rage and despair and vindictiveness and pettiness are. She is just so unhinged. She'd make a great Forsaken.
Just a quick question. There's a line. Suroth had learned that the captain of Tuon's bodyguard had also left the city 9 days ago. That's what's the name of the head of her bodyguard?
It's not Hartha. That's the guy that goes with him. It's not Musenge. That's another guy that goes with him. What's his name? Chat, help. Nobody in chat is helping. I am betrayed.
I went to look this up ahead of time and was like,
But the guy that Moore goes to and spins up the whole house of cards, and then dude is like, I gotta bounce.
Right. So it's not Moore. That's what I always get.
Correct.
It's the other
Correct.
one. Yes.
This was his departure was triggered by Moore, but he is not Moore. Okay, someone's typing in chat. Furik Kareed.
Great, thank
you, Vuji.
Yeah.
Thank you. Furik Kareed, one of my favorite names, and I couldn't remember it. But yes, that is Furik Kareed et al., who's going to meet up with Matt and do a whole bunch of battle.
And then a lot of Suroth basically being like, I don't want to apologize because if I have to apologize, I'm going to get killed. That's the main reason that Golgon doesn't want to be in charge because he would have to apologize.
Right. It's just a whole bunch of her being upset and looking at all the threats.
And then here's another bit that I wasn't sure about. In 17 days, all that had been uncovered was that ridiculous story of Tuon extorting jewelry from goldsmiths, and this was known to every common soldier. What is that a reference to?
It's a reference to literally just that gets brought up when Moore is triggering Kareed to go on his rescue mission. He's like, I've heard a story about this girl extorting jewelry, and she had these guards with her. And that's going to reflect badly on the guard. That's like part of the fire he's trying to light under Kareed's ass. And that is literally the only mention that we get of it. And it's basically in as many words as Suroth used here.
Do we think that is Semirog posing as her?
I assumed so.
Okay.
I assumed that was her seeding the necessary cracks in the Seanchan power base so that when the news of the Empress's death arrives, which will be soon, no one knows who to turn to for power.
The basically undermining the Empress on both sides, the Empress and her daughters.
Yeah, just setting a bunch of dominoes up to fall later. And it's 17 days before. That's like basically the time when Tuon vanished.
Right.
Right.
But that's
It's been a while.
A while. I love how a while changes in this part of the series. In book terms, it's been a while. It's been a long time.
It's been a while.
In podcast terms, it's been years.
And then Leandrin comes in and is sneaking towards her badly and then gets called out, and it's yeah, just the unhinged pettiness of the exchange between the two of them is delicious.
Well, they're basically the same personality.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is the what happens if you meet your clone, right? But you have more power or
Right.
something, right? You like it's not a good thing when you subjugation is the only option between two of yourselves.
Well, I like there's just they have such a lack of self-awareness. Like Suroth just can't comprehend the idea of her ever being enslaved. So she's like just, being as terrible and petty to Leandrin without any awareness that she's just like Leandrin, yeah. And yeah, Leandrin also, the same thing. It's like she can't comprehend that, she's basically enslaved by herself.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of her behavior and her franticness is driven by a fear of humiliation, a fear of loss of status. Like, dying is only one of the things she's afraid of. She's equally afraid of losing her position. Yeah. And this is where we learned that Leandrin poisoned Alwyn just because of an offhanded comment, and that's causing all kinds of like chaos for Suroth. And she forgets that you're not supposed to talk in front of she forgets that the furniture can listen and take initiative. And like getting in her head is gross but fun.
This also portrays a pretty incompetent Leandrin. This is not a TV Leandrin. This is Leandrin who's
God, no.
oh yeah, I will poison someone you don't like, but make it really obvious and be a political liability. What? Like that actually confused me for a little while. Is why wouldn't Leandrin see this as a very obvious problem for the person she's trying to quote unquote help? Unless she's doing it on purpose to throw a wrench in the spanner and try and get her caught. She's like, oh yeah, I'm helping. And it's really just absolutely trying to undermine her.
Maybe. I don't know. Book Leandrin has always seemed a little bit flat and cartoonish to me. Like she loses her potency after that first betrayal. After that, she's completely underpowered compared to all the other villains.
Well, remember, she is blocked entirely from channeling.
She's not blocked from using her brain.
I think she always was blocked from using her brain.
I was gonna say,
well,
she went through White Tower training, so that pretty much instills that brain block in you, right? It's like, don't acknowledge your emotions ever. I'm sure that'll be good for you in the future.
It's funny, too, because she thinks about how if Alwyn had fallen down the stairs and broken her neck innocently, that would have been fine. And that's literally how Semirog inserted herself into Turoth's entourage, was by pushing Neferi, or whatever her name was, down the stairs and having her break her neck. So it's like this ironic little callback to like that. The last time that we heard about someone in Seanchan falling down the stairs and breaking their neck, it wasn't even an accident. That was also an assassination. It's like Leandrin.
Yeah, that's a great notice there. I didn't notice that.
This feels very much like Putin's Russia. They're like, oh, we all know the person who fell down the stairs and died was assassinated, but we can pretend it was an accident. But come on, the poisonings, right? The radiation poisonings that he keeps doing. No one's going, I wonder who's doing that, right? And the same thing, like no one's wondering who poisoned Alwyn. They all know it's Leandrin, or they all know it's Suroth in her house, right? But she's like, did you have to make it so obvious? Because now I have to deflect.
And Alwyn wasn't a threat. Like, it's just this whole petty mess that she's really pissed off about. And then the reason Leandrin came in is actually not to sneak in and kill her, but to deliver a summons to her arch-colleague rival, Galgan. Because Ituralda just kicked them in the face out of nowhere, which was the last POV. It was him lighting the embers on dry grass. And now we've got a bit of a conflagration.
Yeah, this is the news from the last POV reaching her, being like, hey, so we got our butts kicked, basically. A bunch of people came out of nowhere, popped up, kicked our butts in about 20 different cities, or 20 different places. They didn't really kill a lot of people, they mostly just burned supplies, making it expensive, right? They're waging an economic war, which is to make it too expensive to occupy the territory. It very much is guerrilla warfare. It is destroy supplies, waste money, make it not economical to occupy the town and the territory.
Right, yeah. War of attrition but like all of a sudden at once, right? It goes from Terabon is stable to we are actively losing Terabon, like in a moment that transition happens.
We get a little bit about the Lopar.
Oh my god, yes. The giant danger kitty.
It's really loyal, though.
Yeah.
Is so loyal, like super smart, 6 retractable claws the size of steak knives. Like, I want one. I want one so much. It sounds so cool.
Do you notice the relationship between the two rivers' 6-pawed cats? The only place that has, right, the extra claw, right?
I didn't notice that.
Is in the
awesome.
two rivers. And then the Lopar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have always noticed that. I'm like, the only other creatures in the world with 6 toes are the awesome, massive, loyal danger kitties from Seanchan. Like, and they're not even furry, but they sound more like cats than anything else. So I think of them as danger kitties. Yeah, it's kind of like, what are the cats in the two rivers not telling us?
So I kind of picture them like those gargoyle things from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, because don't they have like a leathery skin to them? They're like cats with leather skin. It's like cats who are into S&M, right? Like
Yeah, like really muscular, just like really like mastiff.
Yeah,
kind of.
but I just imagine a very cat-like way of moving, you know?
maybe like hyena, right? Dogs that look like
Ooh,
cats
yeah.
or cats that look like dogs, right? That fit that
And
economic.
jaws that will fuck you up.
Totally.
Way more brains than nature needs them to have. I love hyenas. They're awesome, but they're like scary smart.
And then one of my favorite parts about this chapter is when Suroth tells Leandrin why she's going to be beaten. Just like all the things you did wrong. Because you delayed telling me of the general's messenger. Because you still call yourself I rather than Leandrin. Because you meet my eyes. Because you question my orders instead of obeying. And last but most importantly to you, because I wish you beaten. Love that line. It's just like, yep. Leandrin sucks at being a slave.
Yeah, and Suroth sucks at being like a master in a servant relationship. Like, oh my god, these are the worst people, and they're in such an intimate relationship, and we love to see it.
Very deserving of each other.
Yeah, and also like getting into her head about like how Seanchan view property, because she is like the worst of the slavers, right? She is the archetypal worst kind of slaver for the Seanchan. And to be in her head while she looks at a woman that she has personal enmity towards, in addition to being the arch slavery person, like, it's gross. It's real gross to be in her perspective of like, oh, I can't hit the property because that would be dishonorable. Owning people is fine, but hitting them is a breach of my decorum. It's just fascinating to be in that kind of a perspective. And she thinks she's the good guy. You know, like that's the thing, right? Is everyone's the hero of their own story. She's proud of what she did in Terabon. You know, she's proud of bringing this like ridiculous nonsense system forcibly onto a country. She's proud of not hitting the furniture. I'm just like, wow, you're the worst.
And I think we're kind of set up to like Golgon, right? She says, oh, he claimed what he called excessive ceremony, quote, at the wrong time hindered efficiency. She called it effrontery. And it's like, he's like, no, stop with this pompous bullshit. Like, we need to run a military and a war here. Like, don't let ceremony get in the way of getting the job done. And so, he, you know, in a lot of ways, because later he becomes, you know, an ally of I'm putting that in quotes, of Matt's, right? Like, him and Matt sort of form this relationship. And so putting him as an antagonist of Suroth, I think, sets him up to be a quote-unquote good guy.
Yeah, one of the good ones as far as Seanchan High Command goes.
He's kind of no nonsense. He's practical, you know. And then like in contrast, Suroth is just like, because I said so. Like,
Right, exactly. I want you beaten because I said so. Yeah.
Right. Whereas Golgon would be like, I want you beaten because in battle, that sort of questioning of my authority might get us both killed. Right? Like, he would have a reason beyond being petty. Not that it's good, but like, yeah. Yeah, we are definitely set up to see him as like, he has to prove himself bad, right? He is innocent until proven guilty just by being in contrast to Suroth.
These are definitely like poor parents getting ready to divorce, right? Like, But just like they have a really poor relationship with each other, and the mom thinks she's doing great, and the dad's all efficient, and they're not communicating, and the poor kids are, stuck in the middle. And
and in this case, the kids are like all of the people under them in the chain of command.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
The war effort entire.
And Golgon's gonna, remarry stepmommy to On, and form a nice close relationship. I don't know. I'm stretching this a little too far.
I think that this may have fallen off the
Yeah.
Oh, what's an analogy without taking it too far?
I'm correct.
I just think like two executives at a company. I just like the contrast of the really practical versus really frivolous and short-sighted.
The CEO versus the marketing, or I'm trying to think of two people high up in a company who might.
It's like Dilbert versus the evil boss or something, pointy-haired boss. I don't know. Yeah, like.
All right, so she goes to the map room, which is a repurposed ballroom. She hates the aesthetic of the Abu Dhabi style, but I think it's generally described pretty lovingly, and I enjoy it. It's very colorful and icon heavy, and she hates it.
She call it garish.
Yeah, exactly. She calls it garish. I call it like classical Roman style,
Well, and another, I like that different levels of decoration are described different ways by different people, right? It's the POV of like, to one person, this is gorgeous and delicate. To another person, it's garish and stupid.
Yeah, exactly. So she gets there, gets mad at the staff for not wasting time on bowing to her, and gets appraised on the situation, basically. Scattered across the map, across the entire map, lay black discs marking engagements. The whole ass map. Like, she's like, I have Terabon, and she shows up, and it is on the map on fire. Just like, goodbye, all your work.
And can I just say I hate the way she does percentages? I want 4 in every 5. No, 9 in every 10. It's 80 or 90%, okay? Why does it have to be complicated fractions? Just make it a percentage. Stupid 4 in every 5.
I mean,
80%.
You expect the Seanchan to have a good education system for STEAM?
Yeah, but like, who's gonna not go to school, right? Like, don't show up to class, lose a hand.
I just meant more that their system of education is probably really inefficient and more about rote memorization and less about like critical thinking skills. And, math, of course, you're going to like hamper people's ability to engineer their way around your fascist empire state.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying, it's not clear to me that 9 out of 10 is more than 4 out of 5.
It is to me, but I also did technically get a science degree, so I guess I have the curse of knowledge for that making sense to me.
But I guess in a lot of ways it does sort of fit with the Seanchan being more American, because they tend to use fractions and inches.
Yeah, and we hate practical math.
Yep.
We hate efficient ways of doing math. That is one of our like cultural motifs. So yeah, maybe that's what he was going for. Was like, what's the least efficient way to say this that sounds smart? And like, yeah, I also feel like maybe it's maybe supposed to represent that she's not a knower of things. She's a manager of people, right? She doesn't actually have a good science and engineering background. She didn't pay attention in those lessons to the same degree because her job is to tell people what to do.
I mean, it could also sort of be referencing the Roman decimate, right? The kill 1 out of every 10, right? The use 1 out. That's sort of, I do feel like that's a very military way of saying percentages.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, does anyone in the Wheel-Time universe ever say like 80% or 90%? I don't think they do.
No.
They never say percent, so they'd have to say parts.
Everybody's arguing with me that how is it not clear that 910 is not more than 4/5? And I admit, like, if you do the math, but the difference is you have to actually do the math. You have different denominators, and so it's not a clear comparison. You actually do have to double that denominator to compare apples to apples. It's an extra step. That's all I'm saying.
Or you could just intuitively know that she's saying, I want a lot, no, I want slightly more.
Yes.
And just... and I think strategically, it's a terrible idea. Like, this is letting the enemy dictate your actions. This is being reactive. And it's like, that's the last thing you need to be right now, is reactive. Like, terrible strategy, regardless of the number.
It does feel like when you're like in that late stage real-time strategy game and you realize you're losing and you just take all your troops and throw them at the enemy because you're like, well, I'm basically dead anyway. I might as well just allocate everything for this one last attack and hope that it works. But like she sort of gets called out of it. It's like, you know what, Suroth, your priorities aren't 100%. We have other things we want to do. Leave somebody behind.
Yeah. And I think here is some fun numbers about the scale of Iturralda's attack, right? Because we only got his perspective and he said, oh, this is happening all across the country. But here we are in the bird's eye view of the map room, 7 major supply camps, 24 smaller camps, 20 supply trains, 17 small outposts, 11 patrols, and 15 additional skirmishes, plus a few attacks against settlers. That's the scale that they've heard of in the last 3 hours. They haven't even gotten all the information, but that's the scale of what Iturralda attacked collectively.
And, you know, he probably has less information than they do. His communication lines aren't nearly as open. They, I'm sure, have a more accurate assessment of what happened than Iturralda does.
Very much so. He just sent out the orders and is trusting that it's happening. We're seeing the fruition of that trust. And Galgon admires what's happening. Suroth is just offended and is offended that Galgon would be impressed. But Galgon's like, damn, that is a well-organized campaign. I didn't see that coming.
Right.
Military commander to military commander. He's like, hot damn. Suroth just offended.
Suroth is like, they're hurting me. Make it stop.
Right.
There's also this line, I hardly call 7,000 men a few deserters. Those are Galad's white cloaks breaking away, right?
Yes. So they have they initiated plans for the White Tower raid yet?
No, that has not happened
No, that's
yet.
not one of the plans being interrupted by this. But it is, the white cloak thing is on their radar. So yeah, it's basically Galad took 7,000 and then Asunawa and a couple more thousand have retreated to Seanchan lands. And they've stayed loyal. And Suroth is considering making them all Dako Vale anyway, despite the fact that they stayed loyal, just because fuck these guys.
I mean, fair reaction to the White Cloaks.
Her reasoning is because who knows how loyal they really are. You know, like she wants to reward their loyalty with betrayal. And then she's like, and Asunawa doesn't even want to use Damani. He just wants to kill them all. Like the man is unhinged. It's hilarious to me that the White Cloaks thought that they would find succor with the Seanchan after everything that's happened. Like, are you dumb? I mean, yes, you are dumb, but like, damn, Asunawa. So you're as bad as Suroth is reacting to things.
And then here's, I did have this question. The Aiel are less of a problem every day. Why are is it because they're being gathered in by the Shido?
I think so, because we're weeks into the scattering the Aiel, the Shido, to the 4 corners of the earth, and that's basically always who is meant at this point. When we hear about Aiel, it's the Shido and the Brotherless. So I assume that, they're kind of picking off various bits of clans as they find them, or septs, I guess in this case, as they find them scattered across the countryside. And because Tylee is aware of that whole scenario happening broadly when she meets Perrin. Like, that's not her first encounter with the idea that there's a bunch of Aiel entrenched in the countryside when they make their alliance. That's not news to her at that point.
Right.
So I think, they're probably just collecting them as they find them.
And it's weird that we are not very far past Dumai's Wells, right? Like, that's sort of the moment when everything's slowed down.
Yeah, that is weird, yeah.
It's Dumai's Wells a whole bunch of time, but not really, and then the cleansing, and then a whole bunch of time, but not really, right? Like, yeah.
No, I think we're about 3 months, maybe 4 months since Dumai's Wells. Total.
God, that's so recent. So, Suroth is very emotional. Galgon is like, you can take the fall, but I'm going to take command. And then Suroth stomps out, basically, in an absolute snit, because that's who she is.
Because she lost Terabon, right? Like, and
she's losing control, and
God forbid the person who come to her and tell her, oh, you lost Terabon, is honest, and she's like, no, make this not happen. He's like, have your local general, Turon, send me the roll Iturralda's head, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's not going to happen, Suroth.
Yeah, that's a silly goal.
Yeah.
Like, reclaim our territory would make more sense. But sure, demand to have one of your own underlings' heads if he doesn't deliver on the impossible soon enough. Sure, that's a great strategy.
Way to build loyalty. I'm sure this guy won't defect now that he's in the middle of nowhere and he's dead anyway, right? Like,
yeah, she's not a good leader. She's not a good leader. But fortunately, she doesn't have to be, because she walks into her room and immediately gets, like, walloped with a Semirog.
And this is Semirog delivering the news that the Empress is dead, the Empress's children is dead, the Empress's dog is dead, the Empress's servants is dead. You know, basically anyone who may have at
Not
one
the
point,
dog.
Yeah, the dog is definitely dead.
I like the
you,
delivery because she just kind of implies it's just the Empress, and she lets Suroth go into a total panic, and then she's like, "Oh, I guess I wasn't clear. They're all dead. The entire family, all of them. There's no succession. The whole empire is in chaos. It doesn't exist anymore. So congratulations, you're the Empress. Ha ha ha."
Yeah, and that actually makes Suroth feel better, that her entire country has had all of its leadership killed and it's in total civil war in 50 directions. She's like, yes, I'm not gonna die.
Right.
It's like, you selfish bitch.
I mean, but if you think about it, she is a traitor, right? If that's ever discovered, and it's looking like it's going to be discovered, she's in trouble. But now she's like, you know what? There's nobody left to enforce the rules. I have a lot of power. I'm the biggest in charge. Why don't I go ahead and take over on this side of the country and then just complete the cycle, complete the wheel of time, and go around and take back over Seanchan with the armies that I have here.
She's like, I'm sure to win because, I'm backed up by a Forsaken.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they don't get recycled or killed ever, really. I mean, right? Like, that's what she's thinking.
Well, I mean, she literally does think about how she was promised that she would live forever. She doesn't want to die. She was promised she would live forever. That's one of the things that gets held out, is you can live forever. And like the Chosen are supposed to be examples of that. And, the part where they keep getting, like you said, recycled throughout the plot by RJ, it doesn't help with pricking that illusion.
Right. Yeah. Like, I don't know how much on the radar the recycling is for most people. Like, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, she says, let the Lord of Chaos rule, to herself, like a nice little, mic drop. And Suroth's like, that makes no sense. That's a nonsensical thing to say. And we're like, that's the title of book 6.
And it's important to note that is still the standing orders for the Forsaken, right? Like, ever since they were given that, it's like, let Lord of Chaos rule. Create chaos in the world that basically provides opportunity for the Dark One. We're just trying to destroy order wherever it is. Order in the White Tower, order with the Seanchan, order with the rulers. Any group that could get together and oppose us needs to be broken down. Now, of course, what that leads to is the good guys stepping in to fill the power voids. And so in a lot of ways, the Dark One is creating opportunities for our main characters who are too young normally to be taking over these reins to step up, take over the reins, and unite all of these people.
Yeah, no one said no one said the Dark One was smart. So.
Yeah, right, yeah. But again, who's the Lord of Chaos? Rand with his Taviran. You create chaos, who takes over? The Taviran, right? It seems obvious to me, but I guess the Dark One's dumb.
Well, I guess the Dark One expected to turn Rand. I mean, or maybe he did.
That is the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, let the Lord of Chaos rule to a bad end is the implied part of that. But just ruling ... like he could rule well as the Lord of Chaos. It's potential.
Well, it's why I think the only way the Dark One has to win is in Veins of Gold. If Rand had decided instead to destroy the world. I think once he decided to save the world, there was no way for the Dark One to win.
Right. That is the real last battle. The rest is just follow through.
That is the real last battle. Is Rand in his head deciding whether or not the world deserves to live? He makes that choice, and once that choice is made, the rest is inevitable. And everything leading up to Veins of Gold is the Dark One trying to convince Rand that the world is not worth it.
And then after Rand has Veins of Gold, it becomes that strategy you were talking about of, fuck, I lost. I guess I'll just pitch all of my warriors, all of my power at trying to win anyway, but it's hopeless. Like, that becomes the Dark One's strategy after Veins of Gold, is just beat them down through sheer numbers, and maybe that will work. And it doesn't, but, that's the only play he's got left.
It's why I love the meme that Min's dump truck ass save the world, because, Rand is like, oh, the end of the world, everything sucks, or I could love again. And, yeah, that's the truth.
Yes, an ass is
an
how
ass,
we're going
an ass,
to represent that. How lovely to be reduced to that object.
Isn't that? Yeah. Sorry
Great.
about that. Sorry about
Great.
that. Yeah.
But it is. I find it very frustrating that Rand has to come to a decision in and of himself to save the world, and nobody else's participation in the world matters. It's all about him and his feels. I don't like that as a fundamental plank of the solution. So tacking on the dump truck ass meme is like just icing on the cake of things I don't like. So it's fine.
I don't think that was what RJ intended, honestly.
It seems to be what a lot of us have taken away from it. But yeah, that's fair. I mean, there's a lot in Veins of Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously, I make that joke, but it's clearly Rand's, his friends, his family, his life, everyone who supports him, all of the benefit, there's everything that goes into him having, Tam as the way he was raised, really important.
I feel like the whole thing with Rand reciting women's names and all the guilt that he has about killing women was building up to something where I thought Moiraine was going to have to come back and basically school him and be like, you got to stop feeling so guilty about women, killing women. Look, you thought you killed me, and look, here I am. And, all this has a purpose and so forth, and kind of get him back on track. So I didn't think it was just going to be all about him having an epiphany. I thought it was going to be a little more like Moiraine having a big effect when she came back.
I think we all thought Moiraine would have a bigger impact when she came back. Yeah. As I've said, I'm very happy that a good writer finished the series, but I have notes. And part of that would be making Moraine's role larger in the final book.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear Allie from Wheel Takes rewrite that part in a 4-hour tangent on her podcast, because she will. I know she will when they get there, and it's going to be better than what Archie wrote.
Oh, I want to see that. Yeah, send me a link. Or let me know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they'll be getting there sooner than we are.
Oh, that's cool.
Because, are we slow at getting through the book or something? I don't know what you're talking about.
Moving on through the POV, where are we at? We're at, the whole completing the cycle of conquering the lands and then going back to Seanchan to conquer. I'm just like, stop doing imperialism. Just stop. Just cease and desist. No colonialism for anyone.
But again, it is the story of America, right? We were a colony who became imperialist.
It's like, okay, so we break away from Britain and then we go back and reconquer Britain. But in the meantime, there's a second American Revolution. So now we got to go back and reconquer America. Not everyone, just stop.
Give it time. Give it time. We're working on it.
Oh my God, I know, right?
And of course, I have to bring up my favorite theory about the Crystal Throne now that it's covered in blood, right? Crystal Throne is a compulsion device. And the only way to stop the effects of the compulsion is to slaughter the leaders. Maybe one of the reasons that Suroth has the ability to then try and take over is that the person who compelled her with the Crystal Throne is finally dead.
Ooh, like a horn sounder getting broken off from the horn.
Exactly.
In reverse.
Exactly.
Everyone who was under compulsion is now free.
In fairness, we do see the effects of compulsion last long after the person who created it died. So that's a little rough.
So does that also mean then that the crystal chair is ready for a new user? Then it's blank. It's got the blinking cursor at the top, enter
it has
user
to be.
ID.
Yeah. Does that pass down to Tuon automatically, or does she have to go sit on it?
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, so I'm convinced you have to be sitting on it for it to work, right?
No.
Right, you have to be sitting on the throne.
So you don't think it's bound to the user?
To amplify. So I don't think it's linked to anybody in particular. It's just like the Oath Rod. You just have to hold it.
Well, that's less fun.
And channel into it. But we've been told there are Terangrial that work without channeling, so...
What's going to happen is a crow is going to land on it, and now the crow is ruling the entire continent. Yeah.
Screw you, Ravens. It's the Crow Empire now.
Well, yeah, and obviously the throne is in Seanchan, so Tuon's not going to be sitting on it anytime soon.
I mean, there's someone else is going to be sitting on it by the time she has a chance to learn that it's available for her to sit on. Like, it's just the whole concept of...
Well, then she just has to kill them.
I'm down with Empire. Down with Empire.
But it is interesting about the future of the Seanchan Empire in the future, going forward, right? We see them in Avienda's vision at least take over, and without the support from home, I don't know. Yeah, two things I think the Seanchan really have going against them: the lack of circles, the fact they have no support from home, I think is just going to ruin them.
Yeah, I don't see the Raven Empire being at all like the Seanchan Empire it replaces. Like, that's part of why I think Sanderson gave it a new name. It's not just to mark the passage of time, but to mark how difficult this, oceanic split in the Empire is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think leaving the Crystal Throne in place sets it up for a good sequel series. Because then you can have a new bad guy, or you can just have someone smash it.
And it's probably not smashable unless you throw it in the fires of Mount Doom or something. Which, it's a chair, so I don't know how you're going to get it there. Unless the Eagles help this time.
I mean, can't you have some super powerful channelers link up into a circle and do a Bowl of the Winds operation?
I mean, they don't have circles, so...
We'll have, they can kind of ran teleport at that one time.
That's true.
I mean, yeah, no, you're right. This would require some really major cooperation and all that. So I don't think it would be easy. Yeah.
Well, and Terran are not Quendiar necessarily, right? Like, Balefire still works on most Terran.
The sad bracelets fell out of the beam.
They are made out of Quendiar.
Oh, are they?
They happen to be both. They happen to both be made out of Quendiar and be a Terran. Am I wrong about that?
I thought they were made out of a dark metal. They're not made out of the silvery metal of the Adom.
No, you're right.
But I didn't think they were Quendiar.
The sad bracelets are made of a material like Quendiar, according to WaltWiki.
In that they fall out of a beam of balefire when it passes through them. Yeah. Because, I think when we've got the beams of balefire skewing about in the museum, nothing is falling to the ground. Everything is vanishing. And presumably there's several Terran in those cases. So apparently, we just have to sort of retcon that for some fucking reason, the sad bracelets are Quendiar-like. Does that mean that that the Adom are Quendiar-like? Do we ever see an Adom get blasted by balefire?
I feel like we see Damane get blasted by balefire, and there's no mention of the Adom surviving.
All right. Huh. Well, that's weird that the sad bracelets would have a different property, but okay, fine, I guess.
But it is mentioned repeatedly they are made out of a Quendiar-like substance that's different. They're it's like dark Quendiar.
Huh.
I mean, I don't remember, but maybe they were created way earlier, closer to the breaking of the world. So there was
Yeah, maybe. Oh yeah, because Semirog remembers how to use them. When she puts them on, she's like, let me see if I remember how this thing works or something. So that does suggest that they're from a very different, earlier era of manufacture, and there's no reason for them to be like the female Adom. That's a good point.
Weren't the female Adom based on the male Adom originally? Did that get... Am I making that up?
I think you're making that up. I don't recall there being an origin point. It's just they were invented...
Zool gives me a flat no, so I'm making that up.
Yeah. And also, Elaine doesn't know how to make Quendiar, but even the Seanchan also are not making it out of anything Quendiar-like. So it must just be that in the effort to figure out how to deal with men, these things were created in the breaking. And maybe in the mists of Seanchan engineering, whatever Diane came up with, maybe she did come across the sad bracelets, and that was part of where she got the idea. But it's nowhere on the page, but it fits perfectly as headcanon.
And that is because Terran are made out of different materials, right? We've got the dream bracelet, and she talks about how the materials are important, right? For when she the twisted ring Terran when she duplicates those, right? It's important the Adoms are made out of silver, right? So, but Quendiar is made out of iron.
When they are practicing in the camp, it's iron or pewter or base metal.
I mean, it's what the chain's made out of iron, right? They
right.
turn into Quendiar. I'm assuming it'd be a two-step process that, like, first they turned it into Quendiar and then they make it a ter'angreal.
She's got big blocks of Quendiar stock beams just like waiting to have bits carved off or something. Like,
well, you carve it out of iron first, right? That's how you get it in the right shape. Then you convert it to Quendiar so it can never be destroyed. Then you make it a ter'angreal.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe they have, like the Quendiar age, like parallel to the Bronze Age, where they're like figuring it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Interesting. There's so many engineering questions that RJ just never.
Well, especially around Quendiar, right? The second you give an engineer a substance that becomes stronger when you direct force at it, they're going to be like, oh, okay, so I'm going to break physics now, right? Like, I'm just going to create engines that can do whatever I want, like, because that just it breaks physics in so many ways, right? When you have a sink of, when you can create something that has an absolute, not movable, not destructive, not changing its thermal properties, and then you base everything else around that, you can create all sorts of amazing things.
We also don't know what the seals were originally made out of. And Obi Thunder in chat was suggesting maybe Quendiar changes color due to what it's made from. Like, maybe, yeah, you can have, like, artistically marbled Quendiar or something.
That's right, because if you have a black and a white half of the Quendiar, well, they're both Quendiar, right?
Right. But, like, so why are they different colors? Like, just for looks, or because maybe like one was made out of granite and the other was made out of quartz or something cool like that.
Or one of the Ashaman got bored with Sharpie. I don't know. Like,
I mean, also an option.
I'm going to assume that like you can just kind of turn most metals and minerals into Quendiar.
Yeah, it seems like maybe just an all-purpose kind of weave. You take the thing, you make it Quendiar. Like whatever the thing was before. Like, yeah. Semirog gives a bunch of information to Suroth, being like, you go kill Tuon. And Suroth immediately thinks, how can I induce Semirog to do it instead? Because that sounds really dangerous and scary. And she should go do it. Yeah, and so here's, Seth, you were asking about that rumor about the goldsmiths. You must put every effort into finding her first, but if that fails, her Death Watch guards will be less protection than they seem. Every soldier in your army has heard at least some of the guards are involved with an imposter. She's seeding cracks all throughout what looks solid. That's what that rumor is.
I think this is also foreshadowing her as the imposter burning off Rand's hand when he meets with her later, right? Like, she's being Tuon's imposter repeatedly. So when Rand meets with her later, we're like, oh yeah, foreshadowing for, of course, that's not Tuon, that's Semirog.
Yeah, there are multiple Tuons in the mix is becoming a very heavily foreshadowed fact. There is more than one Tuon. Which is the real Tuon? Will the real Tuon please stand up? No, don't, actually. I intend to become Empress, and for that, I must kill the Empress. It's just like, wow. That is Seanchan summed up to a T. Like, that is just so very, very Seanchan.
The Empress, may she live forever. I'm going to try and kill her now.
Yeah.
The Empress is dead. Long live the Empress.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, with that, before we get into Pavara, Abby, how long did you say you had?
I've only got like 10 minutes left. So
yeah, so I think on that note, instead, we should wrap up here with you. Thank you so much for joining us for
Really
this one
appreciate
POV. This has been very fun, even if we did talk way too much and I was running late.
well, thanks for having me on. That was really fun.
It was really good to talk with you. And remind everyone again about the book that you just published. It just came out, or
yeah. So yeah, dark sci-fi, epic sci-fi. It's kind of like an evil empire. They're all kind of mentally networked together, so it's a little bit of a hive mind, but with personalities. And I do have a little bit of like Forsaken action going on there, where there's like several bad guys with different personalities, all kind of vying for control. And the good guys are more or less rebelling against this. Seems like an unstoppable galactic empire where they just enslave and kill any alien. They take the technology and enslave any alien civilization they come across, much like the Borg. So, when they've outlawed a whole bunch of stuff, including bioengineered superpowers, basically they don't want anyone that can possibly go renegade, go rogue, or contest their power. And so the good guys have a few illegals among them, as you might imagine. And
one might say.
Yeah, sometimes people go to great lengths to break the law in this empire. It's very hard to do because they're all mind readers. They know exactly what you're thinking, what you're planning. There's no secrecy, there's no privacy. And so to get around that, people have to kind of lie to themselves or do things on the real fringes or underground. So yeah, it's pretty hard for them to go against this empire, but as you might imagine, giant galactic war ensues.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting into it, and the link will be in the show notes for sure.
And yeah, definitely. I'm looking at an Audible, and I'm like, yep, this is going on my to read list for sure. If nothing else, just the 23 hours and 30 minutes audiobook. I'm like, yes. I'm always looking for something. I get in these audiobooks and they're like 10 hours, 11 hours. And I'm like, no, it's just not enough. It's just not enough. This doesn't feel worth it to me to buy it as an audiobook. But once I start hitting when you start hitting one day, I'm like, yes, let's go. I'm definitely jumping on that. And then I listened to a little sample. The narrator sounds fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, he narrated the Otherland series by Tad Williams.
Tad Williams is fantastic. Yeah, I love Tad Williams. The Otherland series was definitely one of my formative, VR. What is VR and how does it work and how do we write about it? Otherland nailed that. So.
Oh yeah, I know, right? I've heard, aren't they making a TV series about it?
I would believe it at this point. They should. They should have made it 10 years ago. But yeah.
Yeah, totally. They should.
But it does a better job of the caught in virtual reality genre.
I know.
Probably the best version of it that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like that no one's really repeated that. And we're living in virtual reality now, so I mean,
right.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it is partially because the idea that you can't just lift the goggles off, I think, is hard for some people. But
right. It's Ready Player One did pretty well as well, but I just feel like it didn't have the epic scope that Otherland had. Otherland was so epic.
Yeah. And I actually love the ending to that, which I won't spoil for anybody, but.
Oh yeah, my husband and I, we both read it, and we were always kind of making jokes about that ending. Can't help ourselves.
That's fair. But yeah, so I can't wait to get in your book, and I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it. So
yeah, we'll let you go then, and I'll send you a link to a folder, or Seth can send you a link to a folder to put your MP3 in, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for having me on. Have a good one. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?